If you have been a digital coach and if you are doing Zoom webinars and you're trying to set up yourself as a digital coach, then while you are great at your niche, or probably you're trying to figure out your niche and you are just setting up your webinars, and you've just started to spend money on ads, then these are some of the 10-point checklist that you need to understand before you take the next webinar, and do a self-evaluation of how you are under each of these 10 points. So without any delay, let us start and understand the objective of each of these things. So let us begin. So if you want to do good webinar analytics, the first thing that you need to do is tracking of sources, which means that if you are spending money on ads, then how many people are coming from Facebook, YouTube, and organic. And when I say how many, I just don't mean the count. I also mean who, which is the person, their email address, their phone number, and the source, and on which date they came into your system for the first time. This needs to be systematically arranged in a way where you are able to identify very, very clearly who is coming from Facebook and who is coming from YouTube and who is coming from organic. The second most important thing is that sometimes the data from Facebook, YouTube, and organic is getting stored somewhere in the backend. Maybe it is in the forms that you're using, or maybe it is there somewhere inside your WordPress data somewhere inside that. But it needs to be stored in a proper database, which is maybe Google Sheet or maybe any tool that you're using or in the CRM software. At an early level, Google Sheet is the best way you can go and you can store all the data so that it is auto-populated through any basic automation that you're using, maybe Pabbly or the Zapier. Then it needs to be stored in a proper way with proper labels of which date, who is the person, which email address, which is the phone number, which is the source, is it Facebook, YouTube, and what is the time at which they came into your system, and also ideally which webinar that they registered for, so that every single data point of the customer, it is there with you inside and stored in a proper systematic way. The third thing is daily tracking of spends. So while the storage of the data will give you the name and the email address, daily tracking of spends is only date level, what is the amount of money that you are spending. Because you need to know that whatever money that you are trying to spend, what is the number one, not just the amount, but also total leads that you are getting total at a day level, and what is the average CPL that you are getting, again by source and also overall. So you have a good view of, okay, total how much money are you spending. Let's say you are spending maybe 50,000 a day, and then you are understanding that, okay, out of this 50,000 rupees, how much is going to Instagram and Facebook, how much is going to YouTube. So that needs to be in a very systematical way in which you can store this data. So tracking of spends at a daily level, and also a summation of that will give you the monthly level information, and at a source level as well as at an overall level. So this is the daily tracking of spends. The fourth is exact spend information. When I say exact spend information, that is whatever money that you are spending for the webinar. So here you may have the daily count of spends, but when I say exact spends, let's say for example your webinar is on Sunday and you are collecting leads for that particular webinar from Wednesday to Sunday, then it is the 3 days of spends that you have captured. So this is something that you can manually capture somewhere, saying that for this particular webinar my overall spend was so much, so that this needs to be exact or very close to exact. For example, let's say if your webinar is taking the data for 3.5 days, then you take the half day spends instead of the full day by dividing it by 2. That can be one of the approximate number that you can get, but that needs to be there so that you have the proper spends information for a particular webinar. Because eventually when a person is going to join the webinar and make the payment, you need to know exactly how much money that you spent for that webinar to evaluate proper ROI. So exact spend information that you need to understand, for each of the webinar. for each webinar. Fifth is the WhatsApp group. Now, normally what happens is that whenever you create a landing page, once you complete the data, once you capture the data of the customer, you invite them to a thank you page. And on the thank you page, you may be giving them some sort of WhatsApp group which they can join, which is very, very important for us to monitor that how many people are joining those WhatsApp group just before the webinar is going to start. Because let's say, for example, there are 100 people who have registered for your masterclass, and if 50% people are become part of your WhatsApp group, then you know that 50% are already going to get communicated through your WhatsApp group, but remaining almost 50% is not part of your WhatsApp group, whom you may need to send some sort of message. Now, this is, you may not know which 50% is actually missing from the WhatsApp group, but what it gives you is that almost 50% is not there. And that's why it will help you take a call that should you be investing in any caller services or any WhatsApp messaging services or any SMS built-in services, so that you are able to take those decisions much more wisely, because you may have spent so much of money acquiring a lead. Let's say you may have spent 400 rupees getting a lead, or maybe 100 rupees getting a lead. And if they don't join the masterclass, which will probably cost you 1 more rupee to spend on a WhatsApp message, and you may say that forget it, I don't want to spend that money. But if you don't give them the right reminders at the right time, then whatever money of 100 money or 120 or whatever your lead cost that you spend, that is going to get completely missed, and you are not going to leverage that lead. That's why nurturing and getting the people inside the Telegram or WhatsApp group is very, very critical, and you should be maintaining what percentage of people are joining your WhatsApp group. This is also one of the very good indication for you to check that the audience that you are getting, or the page efficiency of your speed and everything, if it is fine, just by looking at this percentage numbers, and over a period of time you will understand this as a data. Sixth is the webinar attendee. This is how many people actually attended the webinar out of all the people who registered for the webinar. Now, this number can vary from 30% to 40% depending on the quality of audience, the targeting that you are keeping aside, but this is the sixth number that you should know for each of your webinars. Seventh is the peak concurrency. This is mostly to understand at what time of your webinar you have maximum audience. For example, whenever as a flute coach I used to take the session, at the 20th minute people would be highest during that 90-minute webinar session, because people are still joining in, and that is the ideal time for you to start your first secret or actual content. Meanwhile, you can get context setting and many other things, so that you know exactly you are able to track the flow of the audience inside your webinar. It's always good to plan all the nurturing messages way in advance. For example, 2 hours before, 15 minutes before, so that people have enough room to plan and actually join. Let's say, for example, if your webinar is at 11 o'clock and you are actually going to shoot the message at 11, and then people realize that, oh, it's already started, and they want to join, they may end up seeing that message only after 15-20 minutes. So this may be very small things, but as you are going to scale, you need to be mindful about how much time people take to actually notice the message and they actually join in. So you need to know about your peak concurrency, at what point in your webinar people are highest. It is audience during pitch start. So let's say normally when you conduct the webinar, you are talking about, you are giving all the value and material to the audience of your pitch, audience of your webinar, and you have been delivering that for almost 1.5 hours. Now after that, when you are actually talking about the shift from teaching to now inviting in that community, there are 2 stages. Number 1 is how many people are there at the start of the pitch. So for example, you may have 2,000 probably leads for the webinar, and let's say 900 people actually joined the webinar, and out of that 900, maybe at the time of pitch there are only about 700 people who are there at the time of pitch. So you need to know that when you are about to actually start talking about your community, how many people are there in the room. The next important metric that you should capture is that how many people are there at the time of link sharing. So let's say in the previous step, you talked about the audience during pitch start, which means that when you are about to talk about your community, your services, where you are explaining your product. And finally, let's say you take about 5 to 10 minutes or 15 minutes to establish everything about your community. Then you are actually giving your link to make the payment. Again, at that point in time, you need to measure how many people are there in the room. Why? Because if you do not make your community information exciting or your product information exciting, then people may not be there actually at the time of you actually giving the link. So you are not only just looking at the overall sales data, but also you are tracking exactly how is the funnel building from people who are actually joining the webinar to people who are there at the time of pitch, people who are there at the time of link sharing, and then finally comes who are actually paying for your webinar. This is the data which is the most important data, because it is going to give you your true ROI, that how much money that you have actually earned by investing in various tools and of course the ads and everything. So this gives you total information about how many people actually paid. And this is a good funnel that you are able to see attendee to total leads to attendee to people who are actually at the time of pitch to at the time of sharing the link to actual paid. When you see this funnel systematically, then you are able to see through what is working best or where you need to improve. And once you have this entire data, then you can create a beautiful summary. For example, this is one of the summary of one of my webinars that that how much leads that you are getting from Facebook, how much actually missed, how much attended, how many people paid, how many percentage of people paid, what percentage people actually, how much percentage people actually attended the webinar, what percentage of people paid, what was the total revenue, what was generated, what was the actual ad spends, what is the ROS, and what is the CPL that I maintained. Now this data, if you have all this information systematically captured, then this becomes very, very easy for you to create and generate from your webinar. So please ensure that you have this data in place, and this is something it's going to help you derive your true webinar investments and will help you fast track your journey into your webinar analytics. So I hope this is helpful to you and you have taken note of it, and please let me know in the chat box what out of this is you need to work on, and how did you find this particular tutorial for you. And if you have found value, please let me know what's your learning points. Thank you so much. Keep improving your ROI. Thank you so much.